going to take a few minutes to do really two things. One, go through the mechanics of building this customer OLAP, online analytics processing cube. And don't let the mysterious words fool you. I mean, these data warehouses and analyst platforms can get complicated, but the principle is pretty easy. We have an operational database, and we kind of want to extract some data at a point in time and make that what analysts go against rather than the basic data. And that's really all that is happening. We have this chapter that to me, and it's nothing of it's untrue, but it just gets a little bit going. So we got two things. One is to maybe build an understanding of, okay, what does all that mean? And the second is, well, we have some mechanics that we do to make this happen in this particular way. So we have this Northwind database, and it's a complicated database. I've got the diagram up, and really by databases, it's not that complicated. By operational kinds of production databases, but their orders and are the center of it, and customers have orders. They're shipped by shippers, suppliers, but lots of information: who supplied it, the product, what categories they fit in, and this database is getting hammered on in real time by applications, right? Web applications, maybe handling orders, human resources, sales, etc. And so we'd like to have the database available for that. On the other hand, we have analysts who want to look at, are there trends in orders? Are there's, analyzing what's going on. Maybe we can detect some patterns in why people don't order anymore and things like that. So analysts want to get their fingers in here too. And so we're going to do that by building a very small data mart, an OLAP cube, and we're going to create a table that analysts can then go against. And there's some advantages to this. We get more into that in a lecture, but it moves the analysis out of the production database, right? We don't want to waste the time, have a customer not be able to make an order because an analyst was busy running a complex query to get the data out, right? So it moves analysis out. It also will help us to fix a picture at a point in time, right? When we run this build, I call it, we create this table, it says, okay, the data that they'll analyze is static. When you're doing data analysis against a dynamic database, well, your results might change from one moment to the next as well. A new order comes in. And a lot of times for data analysis, maybe you want a daily update, maybe hourly, but it's nice to, when I rerun an analysis against a known database, it's kind of fixed in time. The analysts won't have to do complex query. The query to come up with these cubes, we'll see it. It's not that hard, but it's something maybe we don't want them figuring out, and they might not do it efficiently, so we can let the query development be done to the database experts. And this also will give us a chance to hide some details, a good security measure of what that database looks like. They sort of have a little wall that this is what you get, analysts, and it gives you what you need to analyze, but you don't need to see everything else. And that's just a good security and a principle of what's going on. All right, so I've got some assets here that I've also made available to you. I'm going to start, and it's a text file here. I'm going to just copy it. Going to get here, and I'm going to close the picture now. Get a new query window open, paste that in. Make sure, if you're not already, that you're using your database for this. Use command or something like this. And this is the base query. What we're doing is doing some customer analysis. I'm going to execute it. Or what we're providing, data, so customer analyses can go on. So what this query does, and you can see that it's lots of joins, okay, as we're bringing in all the tables, and that's how you denormalize a transactional database to, get data that can be analyzed. But this is a nice, I kind of call it the normal form kind of table. Notice there's kind of, a little repetitive that we drag in, and we have the customer name along and the employee name along every time. So there's maybe a little bit of, redundancy, but that first normal form kind of thing. But it's a great table. You can envision, if you've done anything in Excel, and we'll be looking at that in other exercises, how I could slice and dice and figure out which employee-customer relationships are the best, maybe which shippers are serving which customers or countries, and that kind of thing. So this is just a base query, and we could have the analysts execute this query every time they needed to do another analysis or refresh their analysis. But it's got some problems. It's kind of complicated. Might take a long time to run, and we don't want to slow down the database. But kind of my point is, we have this core query that produces the results. I'm going to look at the build SQL now that will kind of just push this query into a table, and then we're going to let the analysts work against that table. So that's great. That was just a query. I'm not going to save that because I have a copy here, but what I want to get is, go here, and let's look at this. So, and take a look at that, and it's really not much else. It does show the power of SQL to get things done. You can see we got this basic query that is in the middle, and we'll get to that. And so let's from the top, use the right database. Change that to your database. This drop table, it says if you've already have that table, maybe from an earlier build, we'll get rid of it. But if it's not there, well, we don't need to get rid of it because we're going to create it again. Couple of changes in this script from the base thing. I've added this record ID. That's an identity, and all that's going to do is start at 1 and increment 1 and basically count the records, but give every line in this result a unique number. A lot of business intelligence tools require that every record have this like an identity or an identifier, and that just makes sure that this result has an identifier because we're collapsing things. So that's one thing that changed. Another thing that changed is, instead of doing it off and just coming off providing the result that we see on the screen, when an application goes against the query, they the results would be available in the application, but that just says take those results and put them in this table I'm calling NW Northwind Customer OLAP, right? And it provides a basis for online analysis processes. Okay. One other thing that's in the query is this idea that we're going to grant select privilege to this group called NW analysts. So in the server, we now have the server admin realize we need to do some security kinds of things. And so what they did was create a group. You're not going to have to do this. I'm sort of illustrating what's going on in the background. A group called NW analysts. And the way you handle privileges on a server is you kind of define groups, give privileges to groups, and then put users in groups. So if I kind of go to properties here, this has one member. It's called a D analyst, for data analyst, right? Okay, so there's that group called NW analysts. That group NW analysts has been given access privilege. I don't know if I can see this with my current credentials. I can't see that one because I'm not authority. I can see the group I'm in. I am in as T student, and I'm in this group. But then the database admin has said, well, NW analysts, any member of the NW analyst group can log into the server. What we're going to need to do one time, if you haven't already, so that was security for the server. Now security for our particular database. I've already added this user. I'll pretend I haven't. So what you're going to have to do one time for your Northwind database is and I've just highlighted that text to put it in, and now if I refresh, that says, oh, when any member of this group, when they log into the server, also has, can at least touch my database. Doesn't mean they have any privilege to do anything, but they can log in. So when they connect to SQL Server, they could connect to my database. What we have to do every time we rebuild the table, though, is include this, and this just says allow select read-only authority to that table we just created to any member of that group. And so that's a kind of a handy thing. We'll see how that works out. DAnalyst, or any member of this group, NW analysts, will be able to read that table, but won't be able to see anything else in the database or touch anything else in the database, and would provide some protection. Now, in real life, we might have this table go in another database or another server, and we might do something fancy, but this is, just kind of what it is. And really, all you have to do to build the thing, given this script, is to be sure you've changed it to your database up in the use statement. Make sure you've added that user if you haven't already, but just to rebuild that cube, quote unquote, you execute. So there's 830 rows done, and we got this one, and I'm just going to select the top 1,000 rows. So, it looks like just like the query I did before. Don't worry that this started at, actually it's kind of, you no guarantee what order these records will come in when you build this. So it's kind of interesting that it didn't start at record ID 1 in terms of the physical or default order. That's the notion of relation. The order doesn't really matter. We can always order it the way we want. But I just selected the top 1,000, but there happened to be 830 is all rows from that table. And so that is now just a table. And I think then I'm done. I'm just going to go back to my notes. And so I'm going to minimize SQL Server Management Studio. We've primarily been, I'm going to close that off because I don't need it. Close that guy off between, I don't need it. Now remember, I'm in as T student at this point. Okay, so if I happen to go and I'm going to maybe put on my data analyst hat and use, for instance, Excel. All right, and so I'm in Excel and I'd like to analyze that table. Well, Excel has a ton of different ways to get data. What I'm going to do is look at data, and maybe if you do new query here, it puts you in something called Power Pivot, which is it's a whole different language, and it's not hard, but I'm going to do get external data from other sources. Oh, well, Excel can get data from, among other places, SQL Server. The server name happens to be VM-1, and we're going to use our Windows credentials to go against it. Select which database we want, and you see, the thing is, you only see those databases you've been granted access to here. And since I'm T student right now, I own this whole database, so I'd have to kind of go down to the list to find this customer OLAP. What it does, it's going to build a connection. I'm going to save it under a name so I can use it for things. And my suggestion is, for basic data analysis, is bring that in as a table. On this, we started a new thing, so it's just going to put it on this existing worksheet and start it in cell A1. Voila! Now I've got something in Excel. I might rename that. I'm not going to do any analysis now. Another video, what kinds of things can we do, and we'll even look at Power BI. But my point is, we can work with these data and do what we want and make pivot tables and analyze and sum and slice and dice. But the point was, we can get access. And notice, so when I get out, if I save, and I just save this as I don't know what to call it, but I will just save it by that name. Then I can kind of get back to it when I need to, and that document's in here. Notice that if I go back in, it really didn't save the data. External data, enable that to do. If I feel like that table has changed in the background, then I can do a data and a refresh somewhere, right? Or maybe I don't need to. It may refresh there, refresh all. Gotcha. And that would go just grab that table again. Since it's static, nothing changed, but maybe daily they run it, so you go in the next day and you bring it in. So pretty cool. And this is the way most people will analyze data. Not saying necessarily Excel, but another tool. But they don't get into SQL Server Management Studio and write selects, to tell me, which customers has Andrew Fuller worked with. Well, there. Okay, these are actually down at the order level, but I could, then summarize by the companies to figure out which one Andrew Fuller did. So you have some of these tools. So that's just a kind of a peek at. Save that. I think it'll save that query. That's just a peek at, kind of, if it's in SQL Server, I can analyze. I gonna show a little bit how this worked out, though, if I'm D-analyst. If I'm a member of this Northwind analysts group, I don't want to, as an administrator or data manager, I don't want D-analyst to see the whole database. Okay, all the columns, be able to run generic queries. I just want them to have that one table. And we did it, supposedly, here. This is going to allow me to check it. So this gets a little bit, I've hit start and opened a command window. So it gets a little bit, I was going to say, down in systems admin, but it's an important concept for data management. So I'm in as T student, but what I can do is open a window or open another command window. I didn't copy. I meant to copy that. And then if you right click in here, it will paste it in. So this run as command, it's in Windows. It says, I would like to run this, another command window. You could put any program you wanted in there. I could put this or that, but I'm going to run a command. But I would like to run it as this user D analyst. And then their password is 6410. All right, so that opened another window. You can see it up at the top. But I'm in as D analyst. So anything I do from this window has the authority and privilege that D analyst has. If D analyst, when they logged in, I don't have the GUI, so I'm having to remember just copy that, and then when you right click, it will paste. The D analyst doesn't have a GUI. We could set it up and maybe remote in, but so I have to get into SQL Server Management Studio. Kind of the old-fashioned way by typing the name of the program. And we don't want D-analysts messing with SSMS. We could maybe prevent them from even running it. But I just want to show how the look there is going to be different for D-analysts. They do get to see all the databases, but if they try to get into anything, including, they can't get into T-student donations, but they can get into T-student NW. And if they go look at tables, all they see is this table. They don't know anything about the structure of the database. It turns out they can't add records to that table if they tried. They have select-only authority. So we've kind of screened that D-analyst login from kind of the complexities of the database. And by a similar token, if we run Excel as D-analyst, okay, and try that thing. I'm going to sneak in and it's going to use Windows authentication, right? And going to select the database and notice that I don't get that long selection. The only databases, these are system databases, so I have peak authority at those, but all that, and I'm going to go ahead and just connect to that specific table. Same kind of thing. It's going to save that, and what happens is when these connections get a name, and when you kind of define a new one, it's going to say, do you want to replace it? We could go back and change the name, but I think mostly what you want to do is click yes, and that says, oh, save this connection. And so dAnalyst can get to the same data, but this is all they can get to. And that's kind of the point of looking at dAnalyst and doing that protection. I'm not going to save that. To get out of this command window now, I exit, and I'm now in my command window where I entered as my student ID, and I can exit there. All right, so that's kind of the walkthrough. Pretty straightforward. The real nuts then come for business intelligence and data mining and other things, how I might work with the data. But we've done, basically taken a complex SQL query, pushed it into a table, but that is our analysis cube that or data mart or mini data warehouse that the user's going to work with. All right, so that's the sense. Ta-ta.